and welcome to this video where I will share with you how I created this website with ChatGPT's help and a bit of coding. So let's get started. So this website is a website that I wanted to build just to test and learn around how to bring this to life. So I come from the tech industry. I have been working in customer success and sales, but I haven't done anything about in the product and really in the development phase. And I always wanted to bring all of my ideas to life, but I just can't and couldn't. And so this was the reason why I decided, let's learn to program so that I can bring those ideas that I have in my mind to life as well. And with that reason, I plan to do, and I do, specific projects where I program little features, websites, and so on with the help of ChatGPT, and then see what's possible and how I can stack it all together. So I don't choose the classical learning approach, you could say, by just going through a program and a class step by step, but I stack it together and use ChatGPT as my helping guide. And with that, this was one of the projects that I wanted to do, and I did this two days ago. And I asked ChatGPT to build me this website. And you might say, well, this is a normal website, right? That's not too complicated. You could have just built this with no code or just with a tiny bit of code. Sure. But for me, it's a big project. And at the same time, the main, let's say, motivation for this website was the lower part here. And the lower part here is basically this project where I use an API to my YouTube channel to automatically post and share all of my YouTube videos here on this website. You obviously could say, why not just share your YouTube channel? Sure, I could. But for the purpose of this video and also for the purpose of how you can use ChatGPT to connect this with the website and to your code, and also as a learning project, I found this very helpful. And so I will share with you how I did this more or less. So I won't do like step by step because this would be a video which is almost like 4 hours long. But just to share with you how I went about, what was my approach, and how you can take a similar approach to also bring your ideas to life with the help of ChatGPT and a broad and basic understanding of how to set up the main tools for programming. So let's get started. So what I did is that I used ChatGPT, as I already said. So I went into ChatGPT, and this is my original post, or you could say prompt, but it doesn't really feel like a real prompt because it's more like me just inputting text here. But I inputted text here and asked ChatGPT to help me with programming this project that I had in mind. So I say here, and you see my post here originally, I said, I want to build a very simple, responsive website with a header, navbar, and then I put in brackets, left my logo, middle two navbar links, and right a button. And then a hero section with a title and a background image. And then a grid layout where I fetch my YouTube videos from YouTube and display them in the grid with 3 columns. I want the videos to be automatically added to that website when I publish them, and want the user to be able to click on the videos and be directly moved to the YouTube video. I want the website responsive, so on mobile version I want to have a 1-column grid, and the navbar shall be sliding in and be able to be opened via toggle. Can you create the relevant code for me for that project, please? So you might say, okay, I'm a total programming beginner. I wouldn't even know what a grid is, and I wouldn't know what a navbar is, and I wouldn't know that there are 3 columns. So these are maybe some of those terms that I already used because I learned a tiny bit of coding beforehand, because obviously I built upon my projects. But even if you don't, and I tried this beforehand with a different project, ChatGPT normally gets what you want to tell it. And the importance is that this is a starting point. So it doesn't mean that your website will be completely done and ready when you do this, but it gives you a starting point, and then you can build upon this. But I have to say, for this prompt, the first code that ChatGPT gave me was actually quite good. There had to be obviously some changes, and I made especially a lot of CSS or design changes. And I also made changes, and these are probably the key changes that I made in the process with ChatGPT, is to also include some full stack development behind this, because I learned that you have to be careful if you deploy a website like this, that your API keys, so these things that you connect to YouTube, that they are like safe and not everyone is able to see them publicly. And for that reason, I had to make some changes to include something that's called Node.js and an Express server. So that kind of mirrors the API key, or like the functionality of the API, so the connection to YouTube. But by doing this, I was able to then hide my API key from the public, at least if I made everything correct, but I think I did. So this is what ChatGPT came up with. So it says, creating a full responsive website is a substantial project that involves several components. I provide a basic structure for the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript you'll need. Since fetching YouTube videos requires an API key and backend functionality to keep the key secure, I describe how you can achieve this with client-side JavaScript. Please note that the production, you should use a server-side solution to keep your API key private. So I forgot to actually put this already in the very beginning of this, about the importance of this API key to keep it private. And then it provided me the code. So the HTML here, the CSS, you can see quite a lot of CSS. And then you see here with the media screen and max with 600 pixel. So it basically used here the different CSS for the, for the mobile version. And then you have here the JavaScript, and you can see that it puts in here what I like a lot. It puts in comments. So you can see toggle navbar for the mobile, fetch and display YouTube videos, here the warning, and then it gives you the fetching, and then it gives you here that basically displaying this YouTube video. And I find this very helpful because with the comments, especially for someone that is new to coding, this is really helpful to get a bit of more structure into your code. And then it says, okay, replace those two API keys, so the YouTube API key and the channel ID, and please remember to keep it safe or secret. So what did I do? So I did an open Visual Studio Code. So this is me here with Visual Studio Code. Let's make this a bit smaller. And you see on the left-hand side, so this is the original project, and you see on the left-hand side that I have way more files that ChatGPT just gave me. So I started with only those three, the index HTML, the script.js, and the style CSS. So exactly those three that ChatGPT gave me. And I inputted them here just in my lab basic test project. Very simple, nothing more. And then we started to do all the iterations. And then the iteration started, as I said. So can you elaborate what you mean with this and how I can achieve that? I don't even know why it actually got this with the API, but apparently it figured out that I wanted to talk more about the API. So then it explained to me, okay, you need environment variables. You need to have like a server-side proxy. So instead of making the API call directly from the client side, you make the call via server-side application. This server-side application will hold your API keys and make requests to the YouTube API on behalf of the client. The server then sends the necessary data back to the client without exposing the API key. And then it gave me a simple conceptual example in Node.js using Express. And again, with the channel ID, YouTube API response, and so on. So what did I do? I obviously posted this in. And then it gave me the client JavaScript, deployment consideration, and so on. And then, I had no clue because I said, okay, with which commands can I create a project that includes the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files and the end file and allows to run the app on a local host? So I had no clue where to start. I just had these three things, and the HTML, CSS, and the JavaScript, and then all the other things, all the other, like here, this JavaScript, the script.js, but then also the server.js, but I had no clue what to do with that. So I asked ChatGPT again, and then it gave me all the information that I had to input. So I inputted this all in my terminal. So if we go to here, this Visual Studio Code, I would use here the terminal. I wouldn't use this terminal here. I wouldn't use Bash. I normally use PowerShell, I think. Yeah, I think I use PowerShell. And then I have my terminal here, and then I was able to put in all this information and basically initialize the project. And here you see that I initialized this, the setup, the project with Node.js. So we are already in this like full stack environment, having the server side as well. So I would start this here, install Express, create files, and so on, and set up then the Express server. So this is all I did. And then I also created this env file where apparently my YouTube key would then lie. And then I would run the application. And then I got warnings. I got a lot of warnings. So then it was about installing .env. So basically installing this. Then you see there's some troubleshooting. Something doesn't work. Something doesn't work. So this is a lot of things. Then server examples. So then we really went into there. And then I had this project, or the problem was, okay, how do I structure my project? And so it gave me some ideas into how to structuring it, where to put the end variable, the end file, so where to put all these different files. And then I basically adapted this whole project here. So you see I have a public folder, and in the public folder I have my images. So here's my background and my logo images. And then I have the index and the script and the styles files. And then additionally, I have these additional ones, the package one, the git ignore, and the env. But we come to the git ignore in a second. So I did this, and then you can see here all these additional tips and ideas. And then it talks to me about, okay, how can I keep this API key safe? And it tells me I need a git ignore file. And what's a git ignore file? So basically, git ignore file allows, when I publish and deploy this whole app, then that the environment variable, so basically the API keys and the keys, so the key basically means the connection to YouTube and my channel ID. So those connections are safe and they're not publicly shared. And so here now I have this env file here. I don't click on it because otherwise then it would be publicly available because you would see it. But there would be my API keys. And then you have the environment variables, and these are here kind of ignored through this git ignore file. Then there's also package, and then there is package JSON. So I learned it's all about dependencies and some insights, and also how to start specific servers here. And also where's the main JavaScript file, so the index.js. So this is all lying in this JSON, and this is also something that was then automatically created when I think I started Node.js, if I'm not completely mistaken. So here's how, as I said, the git ignore file, great, and then I learned about here package.json. Then I installed some of those things that it just told me. To be honest, I'm not 100% sure how exactly it works, but it worked in the end. So I didn't get any kind of errors. Okay, here are some additional errors. So I just was missing installing something and then running the server and so on. So you see there's several things that I had to do. Then there was one thing, I'm not sure here exactly. There was one version that I realized the import fetch from node fetch wouldn't work anymore. And it told me that the reason is that they made some significant changes, and that's the reason why it doesn't work anymore. And so I realized, and this is maybe one point which you can improve your ChatGPT later on, or maybe also your Copilot when you do programming with Copilot, but I think this is just within the Visual Studio Code. So mainly when you use ChatGPT for that it now programmed this whole thing, I think, on an older version. So probably if you want to have specific versions, you have to specify this to ChatGPT. So for example, for one of my later projects, I want to use Tailwind and React. And for that, then I would basically put this in my prompt, and we will find out how this works in one of the later videos. But the importance here for me was okay, I want to make this work. So basically, I used an older version then of this node fetch to make sure that it fits the rest of the code. Because at that point in time, I already spent quite a lot of quite a lot of time to learn that. And so for that reason, I wanted to make sure that it actually comes to life and not me completely redoing the whole project from scratch. But obviously, depending on how you want to program this and what kind of languages or frameworks you want to use, this really depends on you if you really want to do this or not. But I think the more you specify this in ChatGPT at the very beginning and what kind of code you expect, the better it is able to help you as well to stack it together. So then here, again, we have the different structure. Then I added my logo. And then I started to do a lot of designing. So the initial designing wasn't actually that bad. It was a nice design, but nothing really fancy and also not really modern, you could say. And I already had some ideas and some colors and something in mind of how I want to have it look. And so for that reason, then I tried to, basically get ChatGPT to help me with the design. And I made some mistakes there because I basically made the mistake that my CSS file was not properly linked to my index and HTML file. So if we go to Visual Studio Code and go to here, the styles.css, there were some basic missing links. So it was called styles.css, but in the beginning I called it differently, and then I had some issues there. So I kind of needed to make sure to first connect it all in the right way, so that then when I tested in the local host, I basically tested that it works and that it basically accepts those changes that I put to the styles.css file. And so I sent some images. You don't see the images now, but they only portray the nav bar, so only this upper part, which was really ugly at the beginning. And so I said, okay, here is an image of that. Don't know why I did this twice, but there's an image here. And please make sure that you adapt the styling because I don't like it. And then it came up, and I put the whole CSS in here. And then it came up with all these additional elements. And you can see this is like a lot of information here. So we might skip this a bit and make it a bit shorter. But it was really about, okay, how can I make this work? How can I make sure that I have a nice design? And then also here, how this works with this design. And then when I did this, I came back and I realized that something didn't work properly with the JavaScript. So I would basically ask more about the JavaScript, and then I would go back to the style and the design. So what you see is this is a lot of information here and a lot of things that I put in. But the main reason was that I wanted to learn also a bit how it works. And at the same time, I always jump around different topics. So you can see I'm just asking it all those questions to find out the solution. So sometimes I ask only about CSS, then I ask about something else. And then I come back to the CSS, but normally it's actually quite good to remember what I put beforehand. And this is all within one chat. So ChatGPT was quite good to remembering what we talked or discussed or written beforehand, and what kind of prompts there were beforehand. And then we came to this interesting point of saying, okay, now I want to actually deploy this whole thing. So it wasn't perfect, and it's still not perfect, but I want to learn how I can deploy it now and take it live. And so I asked and said, okay, how do I send my files to GitHub via Visual Studio Code? They're already connected and I have a GitHub account. So I did with one of my previous projects, I already did something where I uploaded uploaded all my files to GitHub. And then out of GitHub, I would post it to Netlify, deploy it through Netlify. And this was the idea that I had in my mind as well, to deploy it via Netlify. And so this is the reason why I put these two accounts here into my text. And then ChatGPT would give me insight and say, initialize a Git repository if not already done, and then commit your changes, connect to a GitHub repository, and then push to GitHub. And maybe one note before we do this into detail, I forgot one thing to mention before we do into deployment. And the question is, okay, how do I get my APIs? How do I get my API keys? So maybe one note before we do the pushing and the deployment. So for the APIs, there are two APIs that you need for the specific project. So you need a YouTube API and you need an API for your channel ID. So your YouTube channel ID. For your YouTube channel ID, you go to your account and then you go to settings and then you will find it there. If you're not sure how to find it, I basically just watched a YouTube video. And so I Googled it and said, okay, is there someone that explains to me how I find my channel ID? And then there is a YouTube video, but there are also several documentations that show you and guide you to the right point where you then can have a look at your channel ID. For the YouTube API, you can go to console.cloud.google.com and then you can choose a project here, or you choose one. So you have to create a new project. So here choosing project. So I think I used the Falke project, but you can create a new project here And then within this project, there is a library of APIs. So here, welcome to the API library. And there, if you scroll down, there is a YouTube data API. And when you click on this one and you're within one of your projects, then you have the chance here to create an API key for the YouTube data. And then you input this YouTube data API into your project as well as your channel ID. But let's get back. So let's go back to the deployment. So it says push your code to GitHub. So I did this, all this, but then I got a lot of errors. And then I realized, okay, I have never installed Git. So this is what I did. And then I installed Git. There were some issues because I already had it on my computer, but it wasn't exactly where I wanted it to have. It had some issues. So in the end, I reinstalled and installed it like 3 or 4 times. But finally, I was able to bring this to life. So I would initialize Git in your project. I would do all these things here, adding the path. So there were some things I had to take into account. You see, these are some additional things. So I would do all the Git, and you see all this. Now we have to scroll a bit. There were a lot of errors. Understanding of warnings and so on. Let me see where we are. Yeah, and then so I did this, but then I realized, okay, this works okay. I have it now in Git and I have it in GitHub. So I uploaded this whole thing into GitHub. But somehow, then I did also the deployment to Netlify as I did beforehand. So I had connected Netlify to my GitHub account, and I kind of expected, oh, I did this for different previous projects, so this would be working great. But however, I did this and I deployed this, and I got here a page not found. And then I asked ChatGPT, why do you not find it? Why do I not find it? And it said, okay, the issue is that normally when you do Node.js and Express applications, so this piece here, you don't use Netlify because Netlify then requires a bit of a different approach. And I didn't want to go into that much detail because ChatGPT gave me a different idea of how I could do this and says, but for a full-fledged Express server, it's often easier to use a different platform like Heroku, which is designed to host server-side applications like Node.js. And so what I decided was, okay, let's just go with that one. Because there's an exact explanation of how to do this, so I could just follow along. And so this is what I did. I signed up to and logged into Heroku. I installed the Heroku CLI. And then I prepared my app. So I made sure that I have all of these things in place. And then I would deploy Heroku. So if we go to Heroku, so you see that I'm logged in. And here's the deployment method, Heroku Git. So this is basically my app. And then it gives you all this information, what you have to put in. So Heroku login and so on. And then you could push Heroku master. So I had to change the master to main in the end because in GitHub and everywhere it was like main as the main branch and not master. But I would basically adapt this. And then go back to ChatGPT. So here deployed to Heroku. It gives me all this information of how to do this, where to put this things in and so on, setting environment variables in Heroku. Oh yeah, exactly. So then I uploaded this whole thing, and then I learned that I have to set those environment variables. So basically the API keys. And so here it gives me an exact understanding, okay, find the config bars where I have to put this in. So I put in the config set, the variable name, and basically my 2 API keys into Heroku. And then, yeah, I learned do it main and not master. And then we had some Heroku things, set up a custom domain. So basically then after that, I was done. I had this deployed and it worked fine, but I wanted to have it not on this. Let's go back to this one here, actually, to the overview. Okay, you don't see the name here, but it had like Immense Plains 03321, so really weird name. But I wanted to have it on the lab.affalke.com domain. So I asked ChatGPT, okay, how to do this? And it told me how I can set up a custom domain with Heroku. So I would put this all into Heroku and make all these changes. And then at the very end, I had to go to one.com. So this is my host for hosting my website, ffalke.com. Okay, now it says it can't be loaded, but in this one.com and then within my domain, there was a CNAME DNS setting. And so I would adapt this to say, okay, now this app is able to automatically be opened and forwarded to my subdomain. So basically, I would then put lab.ffalke.com would be then this whole long name by Heroku. And with that, it took a tiny bit of time. And then voila, this whole website came out. Let's see if I forgot something that we put here, transition into a React. No, these were additional topics. One additional topic that I adapted as well is that it was first the http.lab.http, so not HTTPS, but only HTTP. So what I did was that I asked, okay, how can I enable this in Heroku? And there was a way, so it gave me that understanding how it worked as well. And with that, then I was completely done. As I said, it took a bit of time for Heroku to also adapt the HTTP to HTTPS. But then I had my fully functioning site. And this one is very easy. It's basically you can click on all of those 3 links. You can also click on the contact button. And then you have here this hero section. And then indeed you have all these videos with their titles. And whenever I click on a title or video, I will automatically be linked and redirected to my YouTube channel and to that specific video. And I already tested this, so I just wanted to make sure that I give you an update and make this video at a time where it works, that I have already uploaded a new video and checked that the new video is shown here as well. And indeed it does. So when I built this project, I only had the second video here. There was the first one. And now that I uploaded another one yesterday at night, you can now see that this one here is as well. So basically it is working. There is one thing that isn't working, as I said, it's a bit of the design. So if you make this smaller, the text here stays a bit bigger. So probably I have to, like just add a different, let's say also media breakpoint for this app for smaller screen sizes. On mobile, it works quite good, but on mobile, you have a toggle button, but you don't have a slider in. But I will be fixing this later on when I do another project, and probably I will redo this project as well and building the whole website with React and Tailwind and ChatGPT. But for now, I wasn't 100% ready yet to do that. So this is a basic, let's say, website and connecting with YouTube where I used mainly HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But as you can see for this project itself, making sure that I deploy it in the right way, I also had to do this Node.js and the Express server and learn some additional insights into how to stack that together. So this is what I wanted to share with you with not too much coding experience yet. I basically started 3 weeks ago with ChatGPT as my guide and with some idea of how I wanted to look like and what I wanted to achieve. I was able to build this within 4 hours, given that I had a lot of time spent on whatever things that didn't work and I didn't know how to work. I think this is a great project that shows that if you just try out different things and you use ChatGPT as your learning guide, you are able to stack together quite great small applications in quite a short amount of time. So with this, I hope this was helpful. If you liked the video, I would be happy if you subscribe, and I will add additional videos over time. And I hope you always find value in them. And if you have specific topics that you would love me to talk about, then just send them as a comment or just send me a message. You now know where to find me. You just go to lab.ffalke.com, put on the contact, and then you find all the contact details. But I also put them in the description below. With that, have a great day.